She really needed to get that loose hinge fixed too, and released an avalanche of the miniature candy bars Annie kept on hand for emergencies. On the bright side, the empty compartment made it easier to locate the envelope holding her insurance information. Here you go. It took every ounce of Annie's self-control not to grab one of the candy bars and devour it while the officer verified she hadn't stolen the car, or the chocolate, or the silver spoon scattered around her feet. A discreet glance at her wristwatch told Annie she had exactly 7 minutes to get to work, unlock the door, and brew a pot of coffee for her first customers. "Everything is in order, officer?" Somehow, it came out sounding more like a question than a statement. The deputy handed her the envelope, and Annie couldn't help but notice the papers looked tidier now than they had the first time she'd stashed them inside. "License, please." "It's right here in my—" Annie stared at the empty spot on the passenger seat where her purse should have been riding shotgun. "Let me guess," he drawled. "You don't have it with you?" No, it's in my purse, which is somewhere else." Panic shorted out the circuits in her brain. "I have one, though. A license." Annie knew she was rambling, but she couldn't find the shut-off valve to staunch the flow of words. "I never go anywhere without it. Except today, of course." Of course. Was that a tiny spark of amusement Annie saw in his eyes? She couldn't be sure because the sunglasses slid back into place, shielding his expression. Heart beating in double time, Annie silently retraced her early morning route. She'd stopped at the bakery for the donuts, and then swung by the gas station to fill up the tank and buy a package of red licorice for Mr. Gunderson, whose arthritis was acting up again. After that, she'd driven to Caroline McCready's house. The older woman had recently made a generous donation to the Historical Society, and the committee members offered to pack up some of the more fragile antiques. Annie volunteered to be the designated driver, transporting the items to their new home at the museum. She'd deliver them during her lunch hour, when she also planned to give Mr. Gunderson his licorice. She wasn't getting anywhere, and she didn't want him to think she was just stalling. Maybe if she started at the beginning. She'd showered and dressed, and then a few minutes before she'd left her apartment, her friend Lorna had called to ask about an old box of playbills Annie had discovered while cleaning out the storage closet at the bookstore, so— "I know where it is!" Annie clapped her hands together. "My license! I left it at the bookstore." The deputy didn't appear nearly as thrilled as Annie that her short-term memory had returned. In fact, he looked downright skeptical. "Are you talking about second-story books?" "Yes." Annie didn't know whether to be relieved he'd actually heard of it or terrified he might be a regular customer. Although she couldn't imagine Deputy Tall, Dark, and Disturbing being comfortable in the bookstore's whimsical setting, with its pastel furniture and cheery yellow walls. "I must have left my purse on the counter." "The bookstore doesn't open until 10. "Rats. Regular customer." "That's true, but I can get in." Annie pointed to the cluster of keys hanging from the ignition like a miniature set of wind chimes. "I'm the manager." The manager. He paused, the word hanging in the air between them, almost as if he were giving her time to retract the statement. "I've only been there a few weeks." Annie tried to ignore the prickle of unease that rappelled down her spine, one vertebrae at a time. "But I love Redleaf. Everyone is so friendly." "Name and date of birth, please." "Well, almost everyone." "Anne Price, with an E. But everyone calls me Annie. And my birthday is October 24th? Don't make it sound like a question." "Yes, October 24th. "I'll be right back." Before Annie could blink, the deputy turned on his heel and strode away. "Jessie," Lorna Kent answered on the first ring. "I didn't expect to hear from you until this evening. Did you take the day off?" "No, I'm on duty." Jessie kept an eye on the rust-stained vehicle parked on the side of the road. "And I just pulled over a woman named Annie Price, who claims she's the manager of second-story books. The last I knew, that title belonged to someone else." Jessie half expected to hear a shriek, at the very least a gasp of disbelief, not laughter. "Well, you've been gone for 3 weeks, sweetheart," Lorna declared. "A lot can happen in that amount of time. I decided to make a few changes." "Changes?" His mother was as predictable as an eastern sunrise. She thrived on routine, whether it was the menu for Sunday dinner, baked chicken, creamed peas, and mashed potatoes, or watering the row of